Welcome to the Beyond Uniform Transition Talks, where we honor the stories behind the service. Here's your host, Renea Jones-Hudson, retired Army captain, international best-selling author, speaker, and fierce advocate for women redefining life after the uniform. With 21 years of service and a heart for healing, she's here to remind you, you're seen, you're supported, and you're not alone. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome to Living Unapologetically Beyond the Uniform. I'm your host, Renea Jones-Hudson, and today I am so happy to have with us Miss Carol Labranche. She is an amazing guest. She's kind of unique because she is not military, but she is a spouse. She's a military spouse and one that is doing amazing things with her husband. So let's join in and welcome Miss Carol Labranche.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, I'm so happy you were able to join us. I'm excited for you to share your story. I didn't want to give too much because I want you to just talk about the wonderful things you and your organization, along with your husband, are doing for veterans. So before we go any further, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm almost married 50 years, so we're looking forward to next year. We got a big celebration coming. My husband, Joe Labranche, is a Vietnam veteran. Like I said, I've got 2 kids, 3 grandkids, 1 great-grandchild, so I'm still staying very busy. I am trying to help veterans and their family members understand a little bit more about mental health, mental wellness, just whole health wellness. And so that I used to swim, so that's my activity. And I also bike ride.
Okay,
Listen to books.
So you said you were married almost 50 years?
Yes.
Or 50 years, like, coming up?
January 25th.
Oh my gosh, you don't even look that old, honestly. You look beautiful. Well, congratulations on making it to 50. You know, we're going to claim that you did. You did. That is amazing. That is impressive.
Well, thank you. It's a joint effort, let's say.
Yes, I understand. And it's showing because you guys together created a company called aboutface-usa. I was actually congratulating you on your 50th anniversary, and we were talking about your joint effort, you and your husband coming together to form your organization called About Face USA. And I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about what that is, what you guys are doing together for veterans.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you, but I really wanted to explain also the things have changed so much from when my husband was in the service. And you don't, as human beings, we don't really notice time going by. We know what's happening, but we're not really paying attention. But things have changed quite a bit. So just being able to talk about mental wellness in this day and age is just phenomenal to me. We did not talk about it. My husband didn't seek help. Not until his 60s. So the idea is for veterans to seek help sooner than later. There's so much, I was going to say there's so much help out there, but there's really, we're still in the beginning stages of helping solve. There is no cure for any mental illness. And nobody likes the word mental illness. My husband cringes when I say that word. But you call it anything else, it'll be the same thing. So anyway, what About Face is doing, we have just opened a center. We started back in my husband will say he started it in 2009, but we didn't become a nonprofit until 2013. Okay. Since then, my husband, who's had some health issues, is sort of slow going, and we wanted to build a veterans village. It's amazing how the community does not really look at recovery as a good thing. They're afraid of it. They don't know about it. So we decided instead of after COVID, before COVID, we were trying to start a veterans village. In 2013, just talking about a village was all people were doing. I don't think there was a veterans, well, there might have been one in California. We had talked to people out in California and Utah. We had big plans. And then when COVID hit, we just, like everybody else, we just sort of shut down and we started talking about how can we help veterans if we don't have something up and running. And we were working out of our home at the time. So we ended up getting a grant. And as a result of that, we have been working on, we've got a facility open, a center. It's called a Veteran Resource and Community Center. And we are helping veterans with clinical help if they need it, peer support groups. We have financial literacy coaching. We have transportation for health appointments. We have a fantastic intake person who talks to veterans, and we call her she's a project director, really, is what she is. We call it intake, though, because a lot of people can come into the center and not really need particular help or looking for resources. They just come in and relax, drink some coffee, and we invite all veterans and the community to come in. So anyway, if they need help, we're asking them to get the help they need. That's our tagline. Mm-hmm. Just start investigating. People don't know where to go when they need help. And so we're trying to be that resource. Not every veteran belongs to a VFW or American Legion. They just don't. Yeah. And the ones that do still don't know where to go. So sometimes they have a veterans, what is it called? A veteran service officer. And that's a great resource to go to if you are trying to get to the VA. Yeah. Not everybody needs the VA. Sometimes they need other services, and not everybody qualifies to use the VA. Yeah. So if you're a veteran that doesn't qualify, then come see us. We're here to help.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons when I came to when I came to speak at the event, and we met. One of the reasons I wanted to join with you is because I do believe some of the I'll say this: you were right in saying that mental health was not a conversation before, and you had me. You introduced me to that book, The Women, and oh my gosh, like I would really recommend people. Like I didn't understand. You hear about the Vietnam War. I'm not from that era, but reading that book, I could literally feel everything, understand. And you're right. Back then you couldn't even talk about it. It was so bad, So to have it just be a topic of conversation today is a big step forward. But like you said, there's still that reservation with veterans from that era as well because of what they went through. They don't want to hear it because that word is bad. Mental health, anything, they think they're crazy or however they interpret that for themselves. So I really love what you're doing to create a different environment, to kind of put a spin on what it means to get help without saying mental, right? Because all of it does affect you mentally, emotionally, physically. All of those things play a part in your healing, in your growth, in your transitioning from the service to civilian life. One of the reasons, like I was saying, that I wanted to partner with you is because both our organizations, we fill gaps, right? DSP Waypoint fills the gap that About Face doesn't fill. And About Face, I went on your site and I love that peer-led group that you have. I was like, wow, that is such an amazing idea. That is very good. And that's what we can do. Like I can send people to About Face to fill that gap that they have. and I want you to talk about the plant, the gardening that you have. That I love that as part of healing. So,
Yes.
but thank you for what you and your husband are doing. You know, I know that just, and like I said, reading the book about what the Vietnam veterans went through, it really opened my eyes, because we think we're struggling in our day and age with what we have, and they really went through a lot. You know, especially women during that time, they weren't even recognized as veterans, even though they were there, right? So,
Correct.
um, yeah, so I appreciate what you all are, what you and your husband have started, and what you continue to do. So let me ask you this. We talked about the psychological. I want you to talk about how you address that, you know, for them, like we said, without saying mental, like the psychological, emotional, financial hurdles that they face post service. How does About Face kind of fill in that gap for them?
So what our vision is to deal with the after effects of trauma, the psychological after effects of trauma. We still have to use, people are starting to use mental wellness. We've
Mm-hmm.
used wellness. We try not to use illness.
Yeah.
Whole house wellness, holistic
Yeah.
healing. There are certain terms that people accept a little bit more
Right.
openly. But boy, you use that illness word, and it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
But I want to give a shout out to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, because
Yeah.
they are a group of family members and people with mental illness, and they work to change, attitudes. They fight stigma.
Yeah.
They have programs. They have classes. That's where I learned. I'm just an average person. Joe and I went through our entire married life until probably 2009 when he first sought help. We never
Yeah.
talked about mental illness. We never talked about veterans. We lived because Vietnam veterans just, they were pretty much forced to just live their lives without
Yes.
the
Yeah.
camaraderie. When I
Yeah.
found out how that was a healing in itself, is the camaraderie of veterans.
Yes.
That
It
is
is.
not what we're about. I get it. I get
Yeah.
it that they like to be with other veterans. I
Yes.
see it now. Our grandson is a Marine now, and he's over in Japan. Um, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Mhm.
Uh, but my son didn't go into the service because I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I didn't want him to have anything to do with it. I was afraid for his life. And now I'm like, well, I'm not so afraid for my grandson's life. I am concerned, but
Right.
the value of what they learn over there, and just getting along with each other, is just
Yeah.
amazing to me. Kudos to them. But actually, part of what we're doing here at our center is trying to mingle community people with veterans so that it's not such an odd thing anymore. Just open up with each other, not
Right.
just separate them, because I don't think that's 100% healthy. Is if
Yeah.
if your only people that you're talking to are veterans. Veterans are just a conglomerate of the community anyway. They
Right.
have been trained a certain way, and they've been through some things that maybe other people haven't. No doubt, no doubt. So, but now we're back in the community, and we need to figure out that we don't want. We like to give veterans credit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their ideas are better than somebody from the community. There's going to be a mixture of everything. So anyway, let's go back to the farm. You were asking me about the farm.
Yes. 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 And then I'll say something after you say that you talk about the farm. Yeah.
Okay, and I can, since I'm on the phone, I can get up and walk around and show it to you if you'd like.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Just,
Well, we have at the center we have about 4,000 square feet, and half of that is an aeroponic farm, and it's indoors. It's got grow lights. There's no dirt involved, It saves on water, like uses 98% less water than if you were to be growing vegetables in the ground. But you do have to have electricity for the lights and for the pump that pumps the water and circulates the water. But it's just reused water. It's bright and beautiful. The towers are white. The vegetables are green. It just gives this atmosphere of it just gives you a good feeling inside. I think some people say the energy is different in this building because of it.
Yeah.
And what we do with it, we have a couple of plans. We're in the process of working. The idea is for veterans to work on it, work in the farm area, learn how to run the whole program if they'd like, but just maintaining it is helpful. But to use that as a tool to practice their behavioral health skills that they've been learning if they've been through a mental health program. They're trying to change their attitude, or they're trying to change something that, how they respond to people, because people with post-traumatic stress have serious relationship issues. And, it's hard to make those changes. And the farm is meant to help them with that. Not just to watch plants grow and go to harvest and then replant. I mean, that's a nice little story for them to just think about. Let it go through their head, and they can see it happening, and they can relate to that. But also, we have a group of developmentally disabled, but they're able, young adults from age 18 to 22 that are coming. They're out of their school, but they don't. They're learning how to be employable and how to do certain things, and the veterans can help them and teach them things. And so not only are they supporting and maintaining plants, but they're also helping young adults grow.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, you talked about integration, right? Basically what you're saying, because I do feel when veterans come back, when we're trying to get back into the civilian life, we're misunderstood. But I think it's because it's a failure to communicate. I do, we can't really explain what we're going through, or sometimes we don't want to because we don't think people are going to understand, and then there's no patience there, or I won't say that. Then it's harder for civilians to kind of really think about what we're experiencing, kind of put themselves in our shoes, because they don't know what they're really doing or how to really do that. So I think it's just a matter of understanding both sides, both parties, understanding and being open to share. That's the biggest things I find with veterans. We are not very open to sharing because we don't think you can understand. And a lot of us have gone through things. Your husband's an example that I'm going to traumatize you with my trauma. It's challenging, because even if I tell you my story, how do you can't, it's hard for you to relate or even give me what I need for that. So.
Right. And, you made me think of something. When I first met my husband, he wouldn't even show, this is how much things have changed. He would not even show me pictures of Vietnam that he thought might affect my stress level,
Right.
Now you see so much on TV. It's unreal. It's no wonder everybody's stressed.
Yes. It's tough. It's tough because you put people in a state where they feel helpless now. What do I say? How do I respond? Like, really, it's a tough situation for veterans to be in, let alone the person that's receiving the information, because now we just, in some cases, we make them feel helpless, even more helpless than they really are. So definitely, as you were talking about the farm, I thought also that, it's therapeutic,
Yes.
and it's different. It's not so much, like you said, about the act of planting or growing plants. It's about two sides of the community: the civilian, the younger people that are there, and the veteran, learning from each other, right? And this is a good time to say, oh, I did this when, or in Vietnam, or, wherever you were in the military, this is what we did. So that's a good way to kind of encourage connection,
Mm-hmm.
communication, understanding. So I love that idea. Like I told you, I went on your site and I did love the idea of the peer-led group, where I read that it was just, it's not really it's structured, but not really structured. It's where you can come in for whatever reason, if you just want to talk, if whatever. And I love that idea. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I really like that concept that you guys implemented.
Okay, sure. We have a support group meeting for veterans only, and it is led by two very experienced peer specialists. I call them peer specialists. They have experience in the military. They have experience outside the military, and they know how to help people communicate. These veterans come in, and some of them are very distraught. Some of them are not. So some of them are just there to support the other people, and some of them are trying to find answers. Maybe they're a little angry, or they're having issues with the relationship. They can come in and talk about those things, and of course it's veterans only, so they feel very comfortable in opening up a little bit more than they would if it was a group of other people. So
because it's a safe space.
yeah, and it's a nice place for them to come, and just, we've got chairs and couches, and I think they use our what do they call them? Oh my gosh, I just went blank, but cornhole. They play cornhole indoors sometimes.
That's a staple, though. That's a staple for veterans. We all know how to play cornhole. Well, most
Yeah.
of us anyway.
The socially, things have changed. Again, they've changed a lot. So there's nobody sitting on the front porch saying, "Come over here and talk to me" when you're walking your dog, or just walking down the street. Just come here and say hello, and let's talk. If you're trying to be healthy, you can't really go to a bar. When you go to a bar, that's where you most likely will socialize nowadays. So, where can you go? We want a place during the day people can come here and socialize and just sit down and talk. I'll tell you, the stories we hear from veterans and from the community too, it's really interesting, and people need to share their story, and this is a good place to practice it too. So you talk about when veterans come back and they don't, they feel that difference of the communications of how do you talk. You talk differently. You all definitely talk differently, but. Be confident, be yourself. Don't worry about hurting anybody's feelings or stepping on toes. You have to be who you are and be strong about it and be happy about it. Don't worry. Worry never helps anything, right?
Yeah.
So that person you're talking to that's only got experience in their own safe community, they may not get it. That's okay. Let them not get it. But also be respectful, because you may be making them feel uncomfortable. You may be saying things they don't understand.
Yeah.
So if they ask you to explain, or if they ask you to say it again differently, just try. Just don't, be respectful, because they've lived however many years you've been in the service, they've been in the community. They know some things that maybe you don't know as well.
Yeah, I will say this to what you're saying. Coming, being on the other side of, coming out and trying. It's we literally. So my story, I think a little bit about it. I was 18 when I went in the military, right? My whole life was in the military, so I was confident in that aspect. So think about that piece coming back into the civilian sector. So I retired as an Army captain, right? Been through the ranks, retired, coming out and just feeling unsure. That confidence that we have in the service, for some of us, it's not that easy to just come back into the civilian, life to say, don't worry about what others have to say, So it's almost like we have to reprogram ourselves. So, and that's where I say it goes back to learning to, it's a communication and it's an understanding piece, and it takes time, 18 to 40. Just think about that. That's a whole lot of years, right? And that's not me being away at college or something. So it's an integration piece for everyone. It's gonna take a little bit from everyone to say, you know what, okay, I get it. And it's not easy. It really isn't. It is a high, low, but I love your perspective, only because I will tell you this, a lot of times we don't acknowledge the military spouse, and so from a military spouse perspective, that's also something we need to consider. And I can tell you, I'm guilty of this because, I don't think about my spouse was military, and we're both military spouses of each other, right? Because we were dual military. So we still don't even have that experience that you have, right? I'm married to a service member. I'm a service member, but my experience as a military spouse is still completely different from yours, right? So it's just a matter of taking all of that, kneading it together, understanding that sometimes we're going to have to add some stuff, sometimes we're going to have to take some stuff away. But when we can get to that nice consistency that where everything, we can say, okay, this will work. I think that's the point that everyone is trying to get to. It's just really being empathetic, understanding, and, just riding this wave the best way we can, So, yeah, organizations, and I think that's what organizations like About Face, DSP2, Waypoint, those are the gaps that we're trying to help the veterans work through and do with the resources that we have.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So being a spouse can be difficult, and one of the words that comes to my mind on both sides is forgiveness.
Yes.
We are not perfect human beings. All humans have issues. All humans make mistakes. Yeah. You can't be right 100% of the time. I know veterans have a hard time saying, apologizing or admitting they're wrong. So what? Just, be forgiving of that. My husband is a Vietnam Marine veteran. He's one tough bird. I'm tough too, though. I'm tough too. And it took me a while to figure that out, that being tough doesn't mean being the person that's right all the time. It doesn't mean taking charge and, making him do something that he probably is just not capable of doing. When you go through behavioral health programs, you might learn how to do things differently, but it's okay to be who you are and work on yourself. Everybody has to continue. People don't recognize, especially the younger people, life is about learning. You learn throughout your life. It's maybe not a schoolhouse learning, but if you're not learning something every day, you're not going to grow. And you want to grow, because when you get older, things change and your desires change and your attitude can change. You've got to be open to learning. Yeah. And so anyway, I wanted to say one more thing about the transition. You transition throughout your life as well. When you have a child, you see the different stages they go through. But they're at their worst when they're transitioning from one stage to another. They're because that's when they're most vulnerable. And so a transition sort of means vulnerable. You might be transitioning from a marital relationship to being divorced. That's a tough transition. You might have lost your job, or you might be thinking about leaving your job. It can be a tough transition. All transitions are where things get a little bit crazy, things get a little bit uncertain. If you can be strong, resilient, as they say, you can make it through, and that's what I'm encouraging people to do. We like the idea of resiliency, but it doesn't just happen. It's sort of sort of a look back review, say, oh, that person's resilient. Well, they've already been through something. So it's not, and but you can also think of it as you're going through things. I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to do that.
Yeah. I what I try to practice, and this is by me growing and learning, is just to understand that everybody is in a stage of, everybody's not growing at the same pace.
Right.
Everybody's learning at the same pace. And we just have to give grace to people, where they're at. It's not that sometimes it's just maybe they don't know at that time how to do that. But that's why we have programs that teach them, better coping skills, better ways to transition through, because it's not always in a negative way. It's just sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge, a lack of knowing how, not understanding to seek help. Seeking help is not an easy concept for many people, not for everyone, but for most people, it's not that easy. So it's just understanding that for them too, that this may be a challenge. Not that they don't want it. It's just that they don't know how to say, I need help, or this is hard, how can you support me? So it's just, I try to remember to just meet people where they're at, because our generations are different. We think differently, we approach things differently. I mean, even now, my 11-year-old can teach me a whole lot of stuff about technology that I'm like, oh, okay, but I'm an adult, so I think I should know everything. So, but I, like I said, this is very good. I want to ask you, so what, and I think you've answered it throughout the session, but what drives your passion to serve, veterans and their families, and what kind of what lessons have you learned working with your husband, on this journey to serve the veterans and their families?
So my husband had some health issues. I'm going to say when he was in his mid 60s, early 60s, didn't seek help, didn't, for his entire life. And it's not that he didn't have signs of mental health symptoms. He did, and they were not easy for us to get through. Finally, I explained to him that I was not a therapist. I think that there are other people that can help him more than I can help him. I've been helping him this far. We always work through this, but it's, like you said, so he finally sought help, and he got the help at the VA. He had gone to the VA earlier when he was a little younger, and they said he didn't qualify to be a VA service connected, but he had some heart issues, so that made him eligible for that. And then it led to some mental health services. And he got the help he needed. And that's really how this started. I learned from the NAMI family to family class. They didn't have the Homefront class specifically for veteran family members back then, but they have that now. But it's still a very similar class that I teach both of them. So I promise you they're very similar. And the family members, there's HIPAA regulations, there's top secret VA, they don't tell spouses anything. Now they're trying to change that a little bit now, but it's still, spouses wouldn't know that their loved one had a mental illness. They weren't allowed to get that information. So they taught this NAMI class, and I learned about mental health, and it was an eye opener, and it also taught me empathy, because there's, you get pretty defensive when you're the spouse. You get hurt, you get defensive, you get an attitude, and it's hard to recognize that you can change yourself too. Just the veteran that needs to change. So anyway, I think I got a little off track there. I did start getting involved with the mental health. My husband and I have different personalities. So, the main thing is we're trying to make this more of a gentle, not a clinical issue. We don't want to be clinicians. We want veterans to recognize that life goes on. We lived our entire life without knowing what to do. We don't want other veterans to not know what to do. We want them to have resources available, get the help they need, enjoy doing it, talking about it, sharing their story, because this is how we grow. You're not going to find a cure for anything if you don't at first start talking about it.
Yeah,
So,
our stories are not just for us, Yeah, our stories are not just for us. And our experiences, they don't have to define how we move forward. And they can, but in a good way. And, hence this podcast, Living Unapologetically. But yeah, it's just really embracing who you were and then just looking forward to who you can become, having
right.
all of that play a part in how you move forward. Carol, it was such a pleasure having you on today. I absolutely I am actually going to connect with you because I do think our organizations can really complement each other.
Yes.
And we really need to get together and do lunch so we can kind of really see how we can really streamline this, to the support. We're
Yes.
distance away, but we're always close together with the internet. We can connect so fast. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I
So
love that. I really recognize that as well. I think that when you came here for the first time, I'm like, oh, I need to connect with this woman.
yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna keep you close, honestly.
Okay.
So how can our viewers, our listeners support your organizations?
Well, obviously, we have our website, aboutface-usa.org, O-R-G. We actually are doing a fundraiser right now that is coming up November 29th and 30th. We have brought in some very good comedians to entertain not just veterans, their family members, but the community. Anybody can come. You can go to our website and get tickets. Veterans tickets are $25 and everybody else is $50. And we'd love to see you. That's going to be at the American Legion in Alpharetta. So
Okay.
aboutface-usa.org is where you can go to get tickets. And you
Okay.
can get them at the door too.
Okay. Awesome. I think I might show up for that because it's just up the street for me.
There's a
Yeah.
whole story behind the headliner is Dave Landau, and you can find him online. He's out there. This is an adult show.
Okay. Okay.
and,
Okay.
and there's also a bar area there that you can get drinks if you want. Probably a few snacks that will be available, but it starts at 6:30. So either eat before or after.
Okay. Definitely. I will show up to that.
Okay.
So
Great.
yeah. So, what would you say to someone listening about living unapologetically? How have you been living unapologetically? I will say beyond the uniform, but this is a joint effort with you and your husband. And how have you said he's lived in unapologetically beyond the uniform?
Well, he definitely lives unapologetically. Like I said, he's a Marine Vietnam veteran, and they my God, they are tough characters. And when he was young, I mean, and even to this day, kids love him. They just are. He's like a kid magnet. They really like his style, and
Yeah.
so do I. But for me, it. I never thought in a million years that the being married for 50 years would be such a big deal. I didn't think we'd ever get here, to be honest with you. But at some point, you do recognize either you're staying or you're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I live unapologetically because not everybody would do what I've done, because I recognize the person before the illness.
Yeah.
I didn't get it for years, but I knew that he was there. I knew that whatever that wasn't like a day in day out issue. It wasn't a 24/7 issue. It might pop up anytime, but post traumatic stress, depression. You guys, everybody has moments, and
Yeah.
if you learn the behavioral health stuff, some of it's very simple, and some of it's just breathing techniques.
Yes.
I highly recommend that. But there are other coping skills that you can do to help change your thought process, so you don't go immediately from one attitude to another. I used to say that my husband had one emotion, and it was anger. So really, if something sad happened or something, it could be anything. And of course, happiness, right? So anyway, that's what I'm unapologetic for, is because I did stick with them. And I think that's not easy to do, but it was worth it. It was worth it. We're still in love. So.
Oh, congratulations. And that's awesome. It really is. And just like you said, just by living through that, how that is something that shows that how unapologetically you, because it's easy to leave too. It's easy to leave, but you chose to stick it out with him. Well, there you have it. Our guest today was Carol Labranche of About Face USA. Please check out her website for upcoming events, and just check out and see what they're doing. They're really doing a great thing for the veteran community. Thank you to you and your husband. And for all of you, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and comment. And remember to join us every Friday at this time live at 11 o'clock. And just so you know, for Thanksgiving break, we will not be here, but we will resume after that. Until next time, continue to live unapologetically. I'm your host, Renea Jones-Hudson.